Blake Lively is not going to like what just came out of Justin Baldoni's lawyer's mouth. And honestly, after everything her team has put forward over the past year, that might be the understatement of this entire legal saga. Bryan Freedman walked up to those TMZ cameras on June 1st, and what he revealed in that moment, both in what he said and how he said it, painted a picture of Blake Lively's legal position that her team has been working very hard to keep people from seeing clearly. This was not a lawyer doing damage control. This was not a man choosing his words carefully to avoid saying the wrong thing. This was someone who had clearly seen the full picture of where this case was heading, and he was not hiding his reaction to it. And look, I have watched a lot of these courthouse steps interviews. Lawyers usually come out looking stressed or rehearsed or both. Bryan Freedman looked neither. What he revealed through that body language alone told you something significant about the state of Blake Lively's case. That kind of calm is not performed. You do not manufacture that energy unless the information you are sitting on genuinely justifies it. And when you understand what he actually disclosed about the case, about the evidence, about the legal proceedings, about where Justin stands right now, you start to understand exactly why Blake Lively's team should be paying very close attention. To understand the full weight of what Freedman revealed, you have to remember where Justin was just a year ago. His name was being dragged everywhere. Work opportunities were drying up. His reputation, which he spent years building around vulnerability and emotional honesty, was being weaponized against him. The guy built a career on being real and open, and somehow that same openness became the thing people tried to destroy him with. But what Freedman revealed on those courthouse steps showed that the story Blake Lively's team had been selling to the public was not holding up to the scrutiny it was now facing. Here is the first thing Freedman revealed that Blake's camp will not want widely discussed. Justin is not quietly disappearing. He is not retreating into private life, hoping everyone forgets this happened. Freedman disclosed that Justin is actively positioning himself as a public speaker specifically for people who have been wrongfully accused. His exact framing was people who have been beaten up by a power dynamic. Think about what that reveals about how Baldoni's team views the outcome of this entire situation. They are not behaving like people who survived a close call. They are behaving like people who believe the record has been set straight and that Justin now has standing to speak on behalf of others who have gone through something similar. That is not a posture you adopt when you think the other side still has credible ammunition. That is a posture you adopt when you believe the other side's case has been exposed for what it actually is. Freedman also revealed something important about the personal toll this took on Justin. And the reason this matters for understanding Blake's situation is what it implies about the severity of what was done to him. He talked openly about how this ordeal shattered Justin's ego, his pride, his sense of vulnerability. And knowing what Justin has put out there publicly over the years, that tracks completely. This is not some guarded Hollywood type who compartmentalizes everything. Justin Baldoni made vulnerability his entire brand. He has TED Talks about it. He built an audience around it. So when the attacks came, they were not just hitting his career. They were targeting the exact thing that made him who he is. What Freedman was revealing, whether explicitly or not, is that the campaign against Justin went after something deeply personal and did serious damage, and that damage is now part of the documented record of this case. But here is where what has been revealed gets genuinely uncomfortable for Blake Lively's team, because the actual evidence her side put forward has been falling apart under any real scrutiny. And the most revealing and frankly embarrassing example is the deposition of her private driver, a man named Mr. Alexander. When this deposition was first being whispered about, Blake's people were hinting that it contained genuinely disturbing revelations about Justin's behavior. The kind of hints that make people assume something really damaging is coming. So when it was finally unsealed, people sat down to read it expecting something serious. What it revealed instead was this. The driver said he felt uncomfortable because Justin was talking about deeply personal and emotional topics while riding in the back of the car. Now hold on. Justin Baldoni is an actor and director working on a film that deals with heavy, intense subject matter. He has been publicly vocal about these exact themes for years through podcasts, TED Talks, interviews. Him discussing the emotional core of the script he is directing is not alarming behavior. That is literally his job. But the part that really revealed the weakness of Blake's evidentiary position was the other thing the driver flagged as disturbing. Justin pointed out the window and showed them where he lived. That is the claim. Justin said, "Hey, that is my house," while passing it in a car. That was being presented as evidence of threatening or inappropriate behavior, and what that tells you about the strength of Blake Lively's case is something her legal team would very much prefer to keep under wraps. Here is what makes that even more revealing. This exact same behavior, a more powerful person in the car driving a younger person around, pointing out where he and his famous friends lived, happened before in Blake Lively's own life. During Press for the Town, Ben Affleck casually described driving a then 21-year-old Blake around Boston neighborhoods for research, pointing out where he lived, where Matt Damon grew up, the whole thing. Nobody called that disturbing. Nobody filed anything. Blake herself seemed completely fine with it at the time. But when Justin Baldoni does the same thing, suddenly a private driver's vague discomfort becomes part of a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. What that reveals about the consistency and credibility of Blake's position is not flattering. The inconsistency is not subtle. It is glaring. And then there is what was revealed about the claim that I think genuinely hurt Justin the most, not just legally, but personally. Blake's team suggested that Justin had confessed to having a certain addiction on set, and that this confession was why she felt unsafe. That framing spread everywhere. It became part of the public narrative around him. Here is what the actual record reveals about that claim. Justin wrote a book in which he discussed, with complete honesty and self-awareness, an unhealthy relationship he once had with watching certain types of content. He was being reflective. He was doing the exact kind of emotional work he always talks about publicly. He never used the word addiction. He never described it that way. But Blake Lively's team took that honest admission and repackaged it into something he never said. And when you combine that revelation with Blake's own sworn deposition, where she admitted she does not actually remember specific details of what allegedly happened on set, only the general feeling of it, the whole foundation of her claims starts looking incredibly shaky. You cannot build a credible legal case on feelings and misrepresented book excerpts. At least you should not be able to. So now let's talk about what was revealed inside that Manhattan federal courtroom on June 1st, because the hearing itself exposed things about Blake Lively's legal strategy that her team is unlikely to be celebrating. After the main lawsuit was settled, Blake Lively's team did not walk away. The claims were dismissed. Justin and his company did not pay the hundreds of millions in damages that were originally being sought, and most people assumed that was the end of it. But Blake's team kept going. They filed a separate motion seeking legal fees, costs, and additional damages even after the settlement. Their argument was that they were still entitled to recover certain expenses, despite the fact that the case had already been resolved without a trial. But here is what the hearing revealed about that argument. Blake's attorney, Ellen Gutz, stood before the court and argued that Blake deserved financial recovery. Despite the settlement, Justin's legal team pushed back hard. Their position revealed something critical about the situation Blake's team had put themselves in. You cannot choose to avoid a full trial and then turn around and expect the same financial rewards you would have gotten if you had actually won that trial. You made a choice to settle. You live with the consequences of that choice. What that argument laid bare is that Blake's team is now trying to claim the benefits of a trial outcome they chose not to pursue. And the court was watching that very carefully. The entire basis for Blake's fee request was California Civil Code Section 47.1. This is the law her team was hanging everything on. Under certain circumstances, a defendant who successfully defeats a defamation claim can recover attorney fees, costs, and other damages. Blake's team argued that since Justin had filed a defamation counterclaim against her, which was later dismissed, she qualified as the prevailing defendant and should be entitled to those protections. Sounds reasonable on the surface, but here is what the courtroom revealed about the actual legal standing of that argument. Her team was pursuing these remedies through a Federal Rule 54 motion, which is typically used to request attorney fees and routine costs after a case ends. Justin's lawyers revealed that going after much larger compensatory and punitive damages through that same procedural vehicle was legally questionable because those kinds of damages normally require actual evidence, fact-finding, and a much more detailed review than a post-case motion allows. And Judge Lewis Liman revealed his own skepticism about all of this before the hearing even formally began. He stated publicly that he was, and this phrasing is critical, Zakshi and assuming without deciding that relief under Section 47.1 could even be pursued through a Rule 54 motion. Judges do not talk like that when they are comfortable with an argument. That is the language of a judge who has serious doubts and is essentially broadcasting them to both sides. What was revealed in that courtroom was a judge who was not buying the framing Blake's team had come in with. Inside the courtroom, Blake's attorney Michael Gottlieb tried to present several things as already established facts. He argued that Blake's communications were protected, made in good faith, and that there was no evidence of wrongdoing on her part. And what Judge Lyman's response revealed was perhaps the most uncomfortable moment for Blake's legal team in that entire proceeding. He made it very clear that those issues had not been formally decided by the court and could not simply be treated as settled. That is significant because Blake's entire damages argument was resting on conclusions that the judge was explicitly refusing to accept as given. Her team walked in assuming certain things were already decided in their favor. The judge revealed that they were not. Then came the Seventh Amendment issue, which is the revelation that should worry Blake's team the most. The Seventh Amendment protects the right to a jury trial in civil cases. And when Blake's attorney tried to frame this whole thing as a straightforward fee motion, Judge Lyman revealed a problem that her team had apparently not fully accounted for. The damages being requested potentially went far beyond ordinary attorney fees. If we are talking about millions of dollars in compensatory or punitive damages, those are not things a judge just decides alone in a post-settlement motion. Those are things that might require a jury. And if it requires a jury, that means more discovery, more testimony, more depositions, more of everything that Blake's team was presumably trying to avoid when they settled. What that revelation means for her legal strategy is that the very motion she filed to recover damages could force open a full evidentiary process she may not want. Here is another layer of what was revealed that Blake's team would prefer stayed quiet. Even if you give her every legal benefit of the doubt, what the statutory analysis reveals is that the actual amount she could potentially recover is probably much smaller than what her team has been implying. Section 47.1 only applies to the defamation claim specifically, not the other 6 causes of action in the original complaint, just the one. And that defamation claim was not filed against Blake alone. It was filed against 4 defendants: Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Leslie Sloan, and Vision Incorporated. All 4 shared legal representation for much of this process. So even if fees were awarded under the statute, the revelation that costs were shared across multiple defendants makes assigning the entire amount to Blake individually a very difficult argument to sustain. Then there is the reputational harm angle, and what was revealed about this line of argument in that courtroom is not good for Blake. Her team argued that she suffered damage to her reputation and lost professional opportunities because of Wayfarer's lawsuit against her. Judge Lyman appeared genuinely skeptical because what a reputational damages claim requires you to prove, and what Blake's team has not been able to demonstrate, is a direct causal link between the specific legal filing and the specific harm. You cannot point at the general chaos surrounding this whole situation, the media coverage, the social media pile-ons, the public controversy, and argue that all of that equals damages caused specifically by Justin's lawsuit. You have to prove that this action caused this harm. What was revealed is that her team has not cleared that bar, and the judge could see it. Blake's team had originally claimed her damages were somewhere around $150 million. She later dropped the emotional distress portion of that claim and ultimately walked away from the case without a trial win, without a damages award, and with this 47.1 motion as essentially the only remaining avenue. What that trajectory reveals about how the strength of her position has changed over the course of this legal battle is something her team would very much prefer was not being discussed openly. So when you step back and look at everything that has been revealed through Freedman's courthouse energy, through the deposition disclosures, through what came out in that federal hearing on June 1st, the picture that emerges is not one Blake Lively eingi allsbein dury Lee's camp can be comfortable with. Judge Liman appears to have at least three paths forward based on what was revealed in that hearing. He could deny Blake's request entirely if he decides that Rule 54 is simply not the right procedural vehicle for the kind of damages she is seeking. He could rule that if she wants to pursue this level of relief, she needs to file a completely separate lawsuit and start the process from scratch. Or he could allow some kind of limited proceeding, but require a much more detailed evidentiary process before any damages number gets decided. That third option is what Freedman's entire demeanor was quietly pointing toward, because a full evidentiary process means witnesses, documents, testimony under oath, and everything that was already uncomfortable about this case gets examined all over again. More discovery, more depositions, more of Blake's own words and decisions scrutinized in open court. Given what her deposition already revealed, that she does not actually remember the specific details of what she alleged happened on set, only the general feeling of it, her team has reason to be very nervous about another round of that kind of exposure. And I think on some level, her attorneys know this, because when you look at the math, pursuing this motion aggressively could cost more in time, legal fees, and public attention than whatever she might actually recover, especially given how limited the Section 47.1 recovery actually is when applied only to the defamation claim and split across four defendants. Meanwhile, what Justin Baldoni's legal team has revealed through their approach to these proceedings is a strategy that has been working remarkably well. They have not been trying to blow up the proceedings or turn every hearing into a media circus. What their conduct reveals is a disciplined, methodical team focused on challenging the motion on procedural and legal grounds rather than relitigating every piece of drama from the past year. Their argument has essentially been, let the court look carefully at whether Blake is actually entitled to what she is asking for under the law. That restraint and the confidence underneath it is exactly what Freedman was putting on display outside that courthouse. When he talked about Justin potentially becoming a public speaker for people who have been wrongfully accused and beaten up by a power dynamic, what he was revealing about Blake Lively's situation went far beyond the legal proceedings. Justin is not quietly slinking away. He is not pretending none of this happened. He is preparing to make this story a permanent part of his public identity. And in doing so, he is making it a permanent part of hers. That narrative does not go away. That is a narrative that follows Blake Lively for a long time. And every time Justin tells his story on a stage somewhere, every time he talks about surviving a false accusation campaign driven by Hollywood power imbalance, her name is the unspoken context. Blake Lively, on the other hand, is dealing with a very different public moment. The "it ends with us" promotional campaign fallout never really fully went away. The carefully constructed image took some real hits. And now, with this post-settlement legal fight still playing out in public view, every new development is another opportunity for people to revisit the whole story and ask questions she probably does not want asked. What gets me about all of this is the contrast between what each side's conduct has revealed about their actual position. Justin has been relatively quiet, letting his legal team do the talking, channeling emotional honesty through his attorney's statements rather than through his own public outbursts. What that reveals is someone who does not need to perform confidence because the legal reality underneath is already moving in his favor. Blake's team has leaned heavily on narrative control, media strategy, and projecting strength. But what the June 1st hearing revealed is the gap between that projected strength and the actual legal reality underneath it, and that gap is widening. That is precisely what Bryan Freedman was broadcasting when he walked up to those cameras. He did not need to spell out exactly where Blake Lively's case stood. He just needed to stand there looking like a man who had seen everything that had been revealed, understood exactly what it meant, and was at peace with the outcome it was pointing toward. That look alone told you more than most press statements could. For Justin personally, the past year has clearly taken a real toll. Freedman said as much openly, the ego, the pride, the vulnerability, all of it shaken. But the fact that he is described as being in great spirits now, combined with everything that has been revealed about the state of the case and the direction it is heading, suggests that whatever comes next in that courtroom, Justin Baldoni is not going anywhere quietly. He came into this as a director and actor who built his whole identity around being emotionally honest in an industry that usually punishes that. He got punished for it hard. But what Freedman revealed on those courthouse steps suggests the punishment phase may finally be coming to an end. And what that means for Blake Lively's side of this story is a question her team is going to have to sit with for a while. Drop your thoughts in the comments because I genuinely want to know where you stand on all of this. And if you are not subscribed yet, what are you even doing? Because we are going to keep tracking every development as it unfolds.